guys? Welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, stay elevated, create that infinity, and up your you. I'm your host, Isaiah. Today is a pretty special and amazing day just because, when I started this podcast, one of the concepts or I guess, motifs or the idea that I had in mind with this podcast is like, I want it to be more of a conversation, right? It's like you're just chatting with your homie, and you guys are catching up on things, and it's just a vibe. It should be normal. It should be something that you look forward to doing, and it's not often that I get to have you know these meaningful chats with my friends on this actual podcast, and you guys be missing all the good parts. I'm not gonna lie, but today I wanted to change that because, someone who's been important to me for damn near a decade now, I think. My brother, my buddy. Our conversations are always ridiculous, and he's truly somebody that I enjoy and heart of gold, hard worker, and just brilliant. So I was like, you know what? It would be cool to have you just on here chatting, because we talked about it for a minute, and to finally have it happen is a big deal. So without further ado, welcome in my buddy, Mr. David. Dave, what's up, brother?
What's up? That was an amazing introduction. I am a little bit gassed up right now, so thank you for having me on your platform. I really appreciate that. We have been talking about it for a long time, and I'm so happy that it's happening. And I'm a little scared for our conversation, but I'm also a little anxious and a little nervous, but I'm also very, very excited. So
Yes. Nothing to worry about, dude. It's there's no hot seat here. I think it was just it was a long time coming. Like you said, we back in June, was it June or May, we were talking about talking about mental health and everything, right? And also talking about your podcast, because you got your own podcast, brother.
yeah, I have my own podcast.
Yep. What is it? Tell the people.
It's Hookah with Habibi. It's still in the preliminary stages. Still, I'm going to be launching hopefully next month, and yeah, I'm excited. It's gonna be pretty much about everyday topics. It's like don't get your news from the news channel anymore. You're gonna get it from me. But it's way exactly. It's gonna be very specific though. So if you like horror, true crime, that's where you want to come to me. And I love talking about horror. Like me and Isaiah can talk about horror stories for hours. Yeah. So if you guys are interested in that, hopefully by next month, it will be launched, and you can always check my Instagram page at Bougie TV and for updates. So
Yeah. I'll put all his infos in the description of this episode, and you guys should definitely check it out. I think what I love about David, I'll tell you what I enjoy about you is you have a way of being very, what's the word I'm looking for, insightful, and at the same time hilarious, and it's effortless. Like there's no, you're not trying to be funny. It's just who you are, and I
I think
think
because I thought I was corny, but
no.
so just
Dude, no. I think it's no, it's there have been times he would, like, we'll talk on audio message, and this is, I talk about the process of friendship often, and how, it doesn't require proximity. It just requires the wanting to be in each other's lives, and everybody has different approaches to what friendship means to them, how it works, what it should look like, etc. And I think our friendship has found this very interesting balance, right? That I personally I don't have with too many people, and I think that's just by design. But it works, and it's getting to the point, like David and I will send each other audio messages because I think that for me is almost like being able to talk to each other without just texting, because texting can be kind of, I don't know, it's It seems it's
Text message,
staccato.
it's hard to understand. Like, I feel like I come off, I don't want to say ruder, or I come off like in a sense of like when I'm trying to make a joke, or if I'm trying to, I feel like express myself, it's way easier to express myself through audio messages because you'll hear my voice, my tone of voice. I feel like you can kind of also get a concept of like my body language in the audio voice, even though you
Mhm.
can't see me. But in text messages, it can just be very short and
Mhm.
very, it can come off a certain type of way. And I don't want to ever not being able to express exactly how I feel, or express, any jokes, because I feel like when it comes to any being humorous and being able to just be light, and with any conversation, I feel like a lot of our conversations are very, other than be when we're in deep conversations, most of it's very lighthearted. So, and it's very hard to do that through text messages because some of my emojis, I'm horrible at picking the right emojis. Like, it's terrible. Like, my selection of emojis, I don't know what it is, if it's my iPhone, but yeah, it's not great. So that's why I definitely love the audio messages. I feel like that shows that you're very comfortable, and I feel like we're very comfortable with one another, and maybe too comfortable with one another.
No, I think we have the right amount of
Tell
comfort.
Isaiah, I tell Isaiah everything, so that's why he's my own therapist. I swear. Sometimes I'll just go and rant, and he's just like,
It's I
you know those late night rants.
Bro, those are the best though. It's like they say, it's the hours between like 12 and some other time is when people get the most honest. So, I always welcome your rants, bro, because they're ridiculous, they're absurd, and you're my homie. So when it's all said and done, it's like there's never I look for an opportunity for us to connect versus not. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it just works. Yeah, but
Yeah, so Isaiah lives in LA and I live in New York. That's
yes,
when,
sir.
yeah, but we still make sure that we put in the effort to have a beautiful relationship, a
Yep.
friendship. And, he is a person that I can always go to, and I always know he's going to be there. And I always know he's going to be there with an open ear, and he's never going to be, um, he will never judge you based off what you say. And like that was one of the biggest and most he's been probably been one of the biggest, most supportive people in my life, let's say for the last decade. And so, that is the homie for sure. And it's a big thing to be said when it comes to maintaining friendships, being a good friend, and it's with social media and a lot of these platforms, sometimes even though it's platforms and it's apps that make it easier, it's supposed to make it easier to be able to communicate, but in a lot of ways I feel like it has hindered a lot of people's social skills in a lot of ways. Like, when that's what I've been witnessing, or been trying, kind of been observing. And so to be able to maintain a good friendship that lasts 10 years, and like the social media, up
Yeah,
and coming, it's beautiful. So I appreciate you so much, that, and I love you to death.
brother.
So
Wow.
are you
Thank
blushing? Are you
a
blushing? Because
little bit, bro. I didn't do hair and makeup before I recorded this
well, I
episode.
know. Well, you're not gonna get that ever again. I'm just joking. So I'm
No,
glad you had this on recording, so you can
that
play
is
it.
documentation. Like, hey, look, he said it. But no, thank you, man. That's real, and I don't take it lightly. And the same can be said. It's funny. We talk about this. Sometimes you run the risk in a lot of your relationships of being the go-to, right? The strong friend, right? We've talked about that. And I think it's such a beautiful thing when somebody meets you in that space. And, you've done that for me over the years too, bro. It's like, if I need to talk about something or there's something that's just puzzling, it's like you come in with some knowledge. And this is what I appreciate about you because you're ridiculous. And at the same time, you're very real. And the balance is effortless, bro. It's really a gift, I think, to have someone who is just full of light and comedic timing, but also very much someone who's sincere and cares deeply. So that is very much you. That is your brand. And, you know, which is funny because one of the things I wanted to ask you, how did you come up with your idea for your podcast? Because it's about ghosts, right? And, you know, current events. So, uh, what was the, besides just liking to talk about it, like, what do you think for you is like, yeah, this is something I want to do and immerse myself in.
Yeah, so I really honestly I was so excited to make a logo of myself. That was the most important thing. No, I'm just joking. So no, honestly, but it was one of my favorite things in creating this process. I know people are just like, "Oh my God, how much fun did you have like having the episode, recording the episodes?" I'm like, honestly, my favorite part was always the logo. I created this amazing logo through and I cannot believe how good it looks. Like it looks
Yes.
exactly like me. However,
Yep.
how I want, but for real, how I really why I wanted to start is because I was watching like a lot of these horror shows or horror movies that was on Netflix, and I love Netflix. I'm not, but a lot of them were ridiculous. So I wanted to come up with something that was a little bit on I guess a, a human level. Well, I don't know, because if you see some of those Netflix series, you understand what I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
uh, I wanted to be able to make it fun and light and be able to also talk about things that are super interesting. Like I love talking about true crime cases. I love to talk about um things that have happened in the real world because I really want to understand the mind of someone who can create so much damage or
Right.
cause so much harm to people without, um really, giving a crap. I don't know if I could say that on here, but
Yeah, yeah. I curse a little.
yeah, no, yeah. I think it's also when it comes to any true crime, I feel like there's a lot of cases that I knew about that when I speak to friends or when I talk to people, they're like,
Yeah.
I had no idea about that. Like I had absolutely no, like I didn't even know that was real. And I was like, yeah. I remember when I told you about the horror story about a girl who she met somebody on Tinder and that whole situation with her neck. Do you remember?
Yes. Yeah.
So anytime I tell that story, people never like always are in shock.
Well,
So
it's an urban legend, isn't it?
it's an urban legend, yeah. So eventually we found out it was an urban legend.
Yeah.
Uh, but even that to be able to look at it like, could it be real? Is it real? Like is it, that always intrigued me because I always went through like series of pages to figure out whether it was real or not. But
Right.
yeah, no, yeah. So that was one of the main reasons I also wanted to start my podcast.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to bring amazing people like you on the podcast, hopefully one day, where we could talk about horror stories and horror movies or true crime and just any day, like any everyday events. Like I remember, I know everybody was talking about the submersible not that long ago.
Yes.
Yeah, I could not sleep. Okay, I could not sleep for like days thinking about what was happening down there. So
Wow.
like
Yeah.
things like that, situations like that, current events, and really trying to get a real life, conversation,
Mhm.
uh, and making it a little bit. I also want to take suggestions from people who view the podcast and look at the podcast,
Yeah.
so that oh, hey, can you talk about this? And then where the next 2 or 3 episodes might be about someone's comment. So I kind of want it to be a little bit more interactive in that sense. So, but yeah, that's one of the main reasons. I want to make sure that people enjoy it and it's going to be lighthearted and fun and it's going to be informative too. But yeah,
Yeah, that's
I
cool,
can I
man.
can turn around and ask you, why do you want to start your own podcast?
Oh man, well, I think
How many episodes is it? What episode is this? 200?
32, 34, because it's coming up on the 5 year anniversary.
Wow.
I think next week. So
What?
it's kind of ironic. I think every year, and it's not necessarily intentional, but I end up having a guest on around my 5 year or around the anniversary of the podcast. Something different just happens, and it's not something that's intentional. I remember when I first started my podcast, my mom, she was the first guest. She's the first.
No way.
She's the OG. Yes, so that will go down in history, and that was like an amazing conversation, just chilling with her. She's a lot like you, so it makes sense why I was like, yeah, I want to have this guy on here.
because
Sounds like
it's
a brilliant woman.
yeah, she's right.
That's it about
No.
horn. Okay.
She's brilliant and she's very funny, like her delivery, and it's always under the radar with her. And you guys definitely have those similarities. I think if you guys were in a room together, I could just sit back and just watch y'all.
Interacting.
Yeah, I'm. She's not. So you're not gonna be my first guest. I think she's gonna be my first guest on my podcast.
I feel it, bro. Started off great. Started off great and get people in. And I mean, she probably would be a good person to actually talk to based on her line of work. How do you take care? So to answer your question, I think I just wanted to create a space where we talk about the real things, like you said, and for a long time I was writing short horror stories, and that stopped. It took a pause. It didn't stop. I should say it took a pause because, life just got busy, and with social media and I guess just life, there are so many pieces of you that change, or so many pieces of you that come to pass. And, writing the horror stories, I didn't necessarily intend to be writing my own stories. What happened was, when I first started, I was like, like you, it was like, put out a forum or something and have people submit their stories and I'll narrate. And no one ever submitted stories. There was one or two people. Shout out to
God,
Tina. Yeah, it was
I
like,
submitted one.
huh?
Why didn't I submit one?
I don't know, because you don't love me.
Oh my God, I feel so bad.
It was like that kid that invites his whole school to his birthday party and nobody shows up. And I'm
Oh
like,
my God. Wait,
I'm not even tripping because I could eat
happened to
all
me
this cake.
yesterday. That I had a picnic. It happened to me yesterday.
No.
Yeah, at Central. So I hosted a picnic in Central Park,
Mhm.
and I told everybody to be there at 12. Okay, 12 p.m. And
Yeah.
people ended up showing the first guest that showed up at like 1:30 p.m. And I had all this food, all this stuff out in the sun for an hour and a half. And people kept coming up to me asking me if I was a financial tech group. So I was just like, oh, so I started texting all my friends, like, you better come here now because I do not want to be asked if I'm a financial tech group. At one point, I was just gonna be like, yeah, I'm a financial, just come. I just needed people to be around me. I feel like
Yeah,
there's definitely probably videos on someone's TikTok, like with the sad music in the background, taking a video of me being alone with a
yeah.
big blanket and then all this food and just no one showing up. It was just one of those moments where I was like, man, this was exactly how I felt in gym class when I got picked last.
Well,
Uh,
I'm gonna ask you, how did that feel? Like, legitimately, did it make you feel like bad? Because I know that was important to you. And
it well,
you were telling me.
it definitely did. It made me feel like I didn't because that was my first time hosting
yeah.
something where I was just like I want all my friends to come together, and I just felt um in a way like I don't know something it had nothing to do with them because they've texted me, hey, I'm running late, but it was more so like an internal feeling where I was just like because I'm used to just going to a spot and being like, and there already being people there, like one, two people. Obviously, I've never seen how it was on the other side where it's like you're waiting for that first guest to arrive and like you're anxious as anybody can come.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing time. Like I had the best time of my life eventually, like when everybody showed up.
Mhm.
During the hour and a half, like I learned a lot. I learned you cannot leave cheese on the charcuterie board in the sun because it will melt.
Oh,
That
yes.
was yeah, big rule that I learned. Definitely never doing that again.
Yes.
And but it was definitely like one of those moments where I was just like, well, okay, like I felt like just like how I feel like in middle school or sometimes in high school, where
Mhm.
situations that have happening where it's like, especially the first day of school, I don't know where I'm gonna sit, stuff like that, things that bring back those feelings of feeling like
Well,
um of I don't know if it's unloved, but it's more so, yeah,
Oh,
I
I
would
said
say
alone, not unloved. Or are you saying unloved?
it could be unloved or alone.
yeah.
Um,
Abandoned.
yeah, I think at the end of the day, it was definitely tough in that moment. But when people started showing up, it was just like, oh, they do care.
How did you? I think that's so funny. Thank you for sharing that, by the way, too, because I think that is. It's something that we fail to realize. We think because we grow older that these feelings or these experiences that we had from way back when die off, but it's like it just takes that one experience, right, to bring back literally you are literally put back into that very moment. Like you said, you remember getting picked last in gym class. Like and the last time that happened was damn near a decade ago probably, right? So it's like you haven't had that experience in so long. However, the recall of that experience is very, very easy, right? And still very much something that's palpable. Like you don't need to. All it needs to be is somebody not showing up, and it's how in those moments of vulnerability for you or moments of fear and doubt in terms of how invaluable you are as a person because you are. How do you think you take care of yourself in those moments to kind of rewrite the script of that, no one loves you or, you don't have anybody around you? Like, is there anything in particular that you kind of say to yourself or do to just, self-soothe a little bit? Or do you just kind of, call the cops and just, send out smoke signals?
Yeah, I usually it's well, if I'm not calling the cops, it's I usually tell myself, "You're doing amazing, sweetie. Don't worry." Like
Perfect.
that Chris Jenner whole thing. No, but
Yeah.
I usually just most of the time just give explanations for um some of the people like for yesterday I gave kind of, oh, you know what, they're gonna be here, don't worry, like that they're trains commuting, it's tough, some people have schedules, so in
Yeah.
that sense I always give the benefit of the doubt, I feel like, for the other person or a group of people. And
Yeah.
then secondly, for myself, I think I've learned to try not to be to have expectations going into anything, even with this, even though I didn't have expectations, obviously it hurt a little, but
Hmm.
it's it has helped me over the years with having no expectations going to any situation. And
Hmm.
as tough as it is, because we want to have expectations from people, but it's I don't want to put my happiness or my emotions onto someone or a group of people that I know might not be able to meet those expectations.
Yeah.
So, a lot of sense, like in a lot of situations, I go in, with no expectations and try to make the best of it, and just talk to myself, like, you know what, like, give it another 15 minutes, give it another 20 minutes, like,
Yeah.
you just keep talking to yourself to be able to calm yourself down in those situations. And if you have a friend nearby, if you have somebody that you have on speed dial, if you have food, oh, food always helps me. I
Yes.
mean, food is a big, thank God I had all that food by myself. And you got to look at things in a positive way. Like, so in that situation, I could have been like, oh my God, no one is here. Everyone hates me, blah, blah. But in
Right.
that situation, I was like, oh my God, nobody's here. I have all this food to myself. I have all this amazing food to myself. They are going to be hating. And by the time they get here, the cheese is going to be melted on the charcuterie board. So they can't even eat that. So checkmate.
Yes.
Well, something you mentioned as far as the not having expectations of people. You know what I found, David? There's little expectations of someone when you trust them, and that could be. So I the way I think about it is like, because as you were talking, I was like, yeah, with this episode, I didn't have any expectation. I was just like, we're gonna do our thing because I trust who you are, and I trust our relationship to know that there's no need to have these grand expectations. Instead, I just trust that we're gonna do our
Yeah,
thing,
that's a
right?
that's a good way to put it. I didn't even think of it that way.
I didn't either until you said it, because it was like, you found ways to one take care of yourself, but also, like you said, you learn to not have expectations of people. And by design, we have expectations of people. We just need to figure out what they are. And I think in relationships where you trust the other person, your expectations align with who they are. So even if, let's say there is kind of like a hiccup or something, you still, in some way, shape, or form, on a deeper level, you expect that that person is going to be as authentic, truthful, and intentional as they always are. So therefore, your mind doesn't really go anywhere else, right? As to where there's somebody you may not know, and your expectations of them is very minimal because, like, well, I don't know you, so I trust you to be whoever the hell you are, and that's just what it's gonna be, right? Um, I think that's, huh?
That's a good way to put it, the way you put it.
I didn't think about it until you were talking about it. I was like, yeah, because I realized I don't have these grand expectations of, I think, people in general, and then I don't have these crazy expectations of the people that I trust.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
That's
think that because going in because at the time I even I knew they were gonna show like I there's free food. They're gonna come. I know my friends. They're gonna go.
sure.
So they but in that moment it just in a sense you can't help it. Your mind goes to places that you can't really figure out why, and I think to do with it's a whole different topic. Inner
Mm-hmm.
child, you
Mm-hmm.
know things that have happened in your past, trauma. However, yeah, that's a great way to put it because I didn't have any expectations but I wasn't also upset or angry towards anybody. And it was because I knew everyone was gonna show up, have a great time. It was
Yeah.
just in that 1 hour, it was a temporary feeling of, like where are these people at? Like like why don't you love me?
right. Why is the cheese melting?
Yeah, exactly. But then I also had a bag of Cheetos that I ate to myself, so I was not mad. I was not mad. But I was mad that everybody thought it was a financial tech group because I was like, yeah. At one point I was just like, yeah, just come, just sit with me. Yes, I'm part.
yes.
Yes, I would love for you to converse with me, please.
um,
I was gonna start talking to the birds at one point. I'm like, I really need to get out of here.
yeah. I mean, I'm glad people showed up for you, and it's like, I think it speaks to who you are. Like, people are not gonna leave you hanging, and one of the things that's, I think, is a great reminder is whenever you're in doubt about who people are, it helps to be more trustful of who you are instead. So it's like, if you know what kind of person you are, you know what kind of individual you are. You know that people care about you. But even if you don't always know that, it's cool to just kind of take stock and inventory of you as a financial advisor. No, but of you as the kind of person that you are is like, I'm a very intentional person, etc. And truth be told, the people that are going to meet me in that space are the people who are also that in themselves, and they value it and see it in me. And it's hard, like, it doesn't take away from those moments of pain. However, it does allow us to sometimes focus on what we do know. If I don't know what you're going to be, if you're going to show up, or whatever the case may be, I can at least know that I'm the type of person that deserves that. I'm the type of person that offers that. So therefore, you know, I can only do what I'm aware of, and all I can only do what I'm capable of. So yeah, I hope, the next time that does happen, you just kind of trust yourself, and you're like, yeah, I'm this kind of person, and this is how I take care of people. So the people who want to take care of me are going to be present and meet me in that space, right?
Good, yeah, great way to put it.
Yeah. Speaking of, how do you because you said your podcast is about like true crime and horror stories and everything like that, and that's some pretty like weighted stuff, right? Like this is some heavy stuff, especially like a lot of your stories and your recounts will be based on actual events, which means that this actually happened to a person, and when you immerse yourself in that, like, you're having to read that information, you're having to process that information, and it's kind of almost reliving it in a way, like indirectly kind of experiencing it for yourself, and that could be like pretty heavy. So how do you think you take care of your mental health, or like how do you think it will be important to kind of keep yourself grounded as you do all this research and put this stuff out there? Like, what do you think, or how do you take care of yourself now, but also what do you think would be important moving forward to
It's
sustain
funny
it?
that you say that because growing up, I've always loved horror movies. Anytime I felt or in true crime, every time I felt whether it was anxious or upset or in any sense of the word unhappy, I
Mhm.
would go towards I would watch a horror movie, or I would watch a ghost adventure show, or I'd watch something that was in some sort of like the afterlife. I love the exorcism movies, I love the Conjuring movies.
Of course.
Like, think I'm a freak because I love to watch those, but that's where I find solace and that's where I find comfort. So in a lot of sense, even though, when it comes to true crime, it's well, horror movies, it could be fictional, it could be, but when it comes to true crime, that was always like a hurdle for me, because some of these stories are so graphic, and some of these
Yeah.
stories are, and I try to look at it in a sense of, um, in a way of like, how would I, if I was a relative to this victim, or how would I like to be, portray this show, like this story? How would I like to convey the story? How would I, and truth be told, if I had a relative that has been, whether it was murdered or killed, or in any sense of the word,
Yeah.
or hurt, I would want someone to talk about my story, because at the end of the day, with any tragedy and
Mhm.
with anything in life, I feel like, in a sense, there's always something great that happens after, and not in the sense of like what happens to the family, but
Yeah.
like looking at the silver lining of any story. There's always going to be something positive that comes out of a terrible outcome, whether it's a learning lesson, whether it's an amazing, you know um story to have been told,
Mhm.
or and this is not saying what they went through, people should go through suffering for a great story, but it is saying, like, this, if I was, the victim, or if I was the victim's family member, I would want it to be spoken about, and I would want my story to be told. And a lot of things, in the sense of like, say if someone passes away, like, you, um some of these lives have been, shortened for a certain amount of years.
Yeah.
There's some people who have died way too early, so you kind of keep their spirit going from just telling those stories. And I've always was interested in, like, um in stories like that, and being able to portray stories a certain way, to be able to have it to be a little bit lighthearted than
Yeah.
it would, because it is a very hard balance to do,
Yeah.
because when you're speaking about things like this, people are just like, you shouldn't be making jokes, you shouldn't be joking around about
Yeah.
these stories. However, I think that, for a lot of people who are not connected to these characters,
Yeah.
um, it's it's, you have to keep it lighthearted, because when you're hearing 30 crime stories a day, or when you're hearing, it will take a toll on you. So for me personally,
Yeah.
um, you know, it's um, it's just the message that I would want to be able to convey a story, in a light of which, how I would want to be, how my story would want to be told, if that happened to me. So yeah.
Okay. That's cool. I like that. I think yeah, and I mean I trust you. You're gonna do just fine. I'm excited to like
It's just a very tough, it's a small line to
To
be on.
walk.
Yeah, to walk,
Yeah.
exactly. And I've had trouble being able to be myself in front of a camera,
Okay.
while telling these stories. That was always one of the biggest struggles
Yeah.
with um having a podcast, and I didn't know how difficult it was until
Yeah.
I started manufacturing these dad jokes, and I was like, oh my God, I gotta stop. Maybe that is me, I don't know, because I would play it back, I'm like, how does Isaiah stand me? I'm like, this is horrifying. I
Dude,
went through so
it's
many
not.
I went through so many deletes, like I would have to delete so many videos, because I was like, this is not it didn't feel authentic to me, like it just didn't, it felt so manufactured. And I
Uh-huh.
didn't want my podcast to be that. I wanted to show me who I am, and I want to show, and I want to talk about things that I like. Like, I love to talk about true crime, and I love to talk about horror stories.
Yeah.
So it definitely is going to be an exciting podcast, but it's also, it's a new avenue for me. So I will be taking a lot of advice from you. I
Gotcha.
always call you for anything. So uh yeah, no.
cool.
So
I got you. I think honestly I think you're gonna do just fine. and you know the being on camera, the jitters. Like I said, one of the things that I use as a tool is I don't know. I think I talk to myself a lot anyway. So it's like the conversations that I have out loud are just an extension of that in a lot of ways. And it just feels kind of natural. And you know, I think when you have the right intentions, and I tell people this all the time, if your intention is to just be yourself and do something and create something that's important to you, everything else kind of washes away because you're not your goal is to not get people's attention. Your goal is to just do something that's intentional, right? And when you have that process and that awareness and that trajectory, it makes it easier. And I think for you it's gonna be just fine, bro. It's gonna be just fine.
I
Yeah.
think it's one of those things that I just yeah, I'm gonna take it a step at a time, and I'm gonna soak it all in, and just gonna be myself. And
Yeah,
if I think I'm
I'm proud
crazy,
of you.
at least I'm crazy myself. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna be. I'd rather they would. There's a saying that I really like. It's you would rather people hate you for who you are than like you for what you're not. So I'm
it is.
trying to keep it as authentic as possible and just be myself. And hopefully, when the episodes start rolling out,
Yeah.
I get some positive feedback, and then hopefully the ones that are negative, you will be blocked. So no, I'm just joking.
Rock
I'm
and
just
bless.
kidding. The block button does work, y'all. So
Yeah.
make
The blog button still works. That has not been
I have
updated.
to control my bubble. I have to make sure that I
Yes.
put my energy.
Well, yeah, I think you know what's funny, bro. I think that is so important, and I want to do like a lightning round with you before we end. But I think protecting your space is very important because the internet allows people to do and say things that they would never say in person, right? And they get to say these things and then walk away from their phone and not have to deal with any ramifications. And they think because you are a public figure or something, you're putting yourself out there, which means that you should be susceptible or open to whatever harshness may come your way, right? And I think it is important. The way I like to think about anything that I create, whether it's my podcast, my social media, or anything, is like this is a home for me. Like this is an extension of my home that I'm building, right? And people are allowed to walk into it, right? The door is open. However, if you walk in with your shoes on and you think you're going to kick stuff around, that's not how this works. This is my home that I created, right? So I am allowed to protect it, right? And it's not removing the ability to have discourse or conversation because that is cool. However, I think sometimes people overstep their boundaries or they're just very unkind and they think because and they use the trajectory of like, well, you're a public figure or this is social media, it's open to discussion. However, they are very sensitive when you give them feedback on return, which means that it's not about whether or not it's social media and being open to discussion. It's you wanting to be a very nasty person. Um, so I think that's good that you're, and I got your back, dude. I mean, whatever you need on my end, that's implied.
That brings me comfort as well.
Oh,
It's
say
just
what?
also, yeah, it's also, and when it comes to these comments, it's always like a one-sided thing because it's like, hey, you suck, and then I look at their profile and it's blank, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm
Yeah,
like, I can't even say you suck back because like I don't know who the hell they
I
are,
know you.
and
You're
then
right.
yeah, they have so it's very tough. I feel like we both had well. I think on my social media, on my TikToks, I would post videos, and I was I kind of stopped in a way. Like I stopped really posting, and I was really wondering why. And it
Yeah.
was because of a few comments that were like under my page that just were ridiculous. And I think I don't think it is the complete reason. I think it was one of those things that in the back of my head subconsciously,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I just kind of didn't want to deal with that.
Okay.
However, it is tough to, but also some criticism is not always bad criticism. I love when it's constructive. I can take that,
Yeah.
but when it comes to just being nasty and rude, it's just like keep that over there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the vibe. Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good for you. I'm proud of you, man. This is a big deal, and this is like a new step, and you already work very hard. However, you are always willing to kind of expand your horizons, and I think this is going to be. I think it's going to.
Too, when you help because you're very um you love to explore. I feel like you're not afraid of going outside your comfort zone, or you're not afraid to create and any sense of the word. You're an author. You have this amazing podcast. You're like going viral on my Instagram and on TikTok, and you're doing amazing things, which I'm so proud of you. Um, and you're never afraid to create, and this is why you've built the brand that you have, and it's because you're not afraid of creating something, even if you think it's going to fail in any sense of the word. You don't care, you go and you do it, because listen, like, that's one thing that was always my biggest fear of failure.
Yes.
I always look toward him, you know what, like Isaiah was able to do all of this. He has his podcast. Like they say, Beyonce has 24 hours in the day. So what are you doing? And I would say, Isaiah has 24 hours in the day, but look about, he has, and I'm very proud of you. And I do look up to you when it comes to just creating
Yeah.
and being able to have it hold an audience, and be able to be authentic and real, and be consistent. I think that's a big thing. It's very hard to be consistent, but you're up. Let me tell you something. This is way too early for me. This is 9, 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Isaiah is living in California. He's up at 6 a.m., recording this podcast. So I just want to let you guys know that this man is dedicated and is extremely consistent.
Thanks.
Um, Show us your calendar. I want to see your calendar. It's probably like every 15 minutes. Got to do this. Got to do this.
Dude, it's funny? I don't have a physical calendar. It's just it's in my head. I'm like, this, I got to do this, and this. And it's so crazy. I'm like, it's funny because I think, first of all, thank you for saying those things. And I think it will be something that I remind myself of as I continue on, because it's easy to get kind of, stressed out, bogged down, or feel discouraged at times. So thank you for expressing that. But yeah, I don't have a physical calendar. I tried to do it sometimes, but then I'm like, well, I got to run to this next thing. But I'm learning to take more pauses, and intentional pauses in my growth, but also in my work, because I think, and this, like, when you work very hard, a lot of times you don't even see the work that you do. You just want to work, or you think you need to work, and it's like, all right, well, what is it all for if I'm not appreciating myself in this process? You get me? So yeah, so all right, so before I let you go, here's a lightning round for you. What's your favorite horror movie, your favorite anime, and 3 things that you value about friendship?
Okay, so my favorite horror movie is, you guys can kill me for this one, but I have a weird obsession with the first Conjuring.
I knew
Uh,
that.
yeah, that's my movie. I will watch that every day. I tried to make my mom watch it, and I was like, Mom, she loves romantic movies, so
No. Conjuring
I was
is a romantic movie.
huh?
Conjuring is a
Yeah,
romantic
it
movie.
is. Yeah, exactly. It's a romantic movie between a demon and a family. Like, that's what I told her. And at first, so her English is like subpar, so
Yeah.
she thought that demon was like a person's name, and I was like, yeah, it's like she's like,
Yeah.
"What? A man loving a family? Like, I don't get it." So I was like, yeah, mom, yeah, just watch it. Don't worry. And when she saw the first witch like hanging, she was like, turn this off. It was so funny.
I
Oh my
love
God.
it.
Yeah, so and my favorite anime would be Attack on Titan. I'm still not done.
Uh-huh.
Um, However, I love that show. I feel like it's so good. I'm not super into anime.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of my friends are. A lot of my friends are trying to get me into anime.
Yeah.
I did love Dragon Ball Z, like growing up as a kid, my whole life. But like recent animes, I would definitely say Attack on Titan. Amazing show. Love it. Mikasa is that girl.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, and then 3 qualities I look for in a friend. First quality I would say is that's a hard one. I never really had put any thought into it.
What?
First quality I would say is honesty. I
Okay.
think I appreciate honesty. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Second is support, someone who's supportive
Mm-hmm.
in my rush ideas.
Mhm.
And 3 would have to be someone who I can just kick it with, like someone I'm comfortable with. I don't know if that's a quality, but
Yeah.
uh, yeah, someone who I can feel comfortable with. I think and have those real conversations. I think that's very important. But yeah, oh, yeah.
What's
What
wrong?
about you? Wait, what about you before this lightning round ends? I want to know your 3.
My 3. So my heart
Horror movie,
anime.
yeah.
Okay, so my favorite horror movie, I'd say the original Halloween. That's my jam.
Okay, I did not expect that.
Really? I thought we had this conversation.
We had this conversation, but I thought it would change.
No, I'm pretty consistent. I think it's the original Halloween. I've watched Jeepers Creepers 1,008
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
times.
what I thought you were gonna say. I thought you were gonna say
I almost
Jeepers.
said that. I almost
Yeah,
said that. I was like,
because
no,
I
I
remember
got it.
you.
Huh?
I really thought you were gonna say Jeepers Creepers because that movie was creepy.
I love that movie.
We had a
I was,
conversation about that before.
That's inspired by a true story.
Really?
Yeah, I'm gonna send you the link because it's trippy.
Oh, should I? I'm a little concerned because that doesn't even look like it would be remotely true.
Well, the concept of it is all it's. I'm gonna send you the link because
Yeah, send me the
it's
link.
wild. So I got you on that. Yeah. So I'd say I'd say the original Halloween, but really like Jeepers Creepers. I say Halloween because I don't want
You
Michael Myers to
always
feel some
you
type of
always
way.
talked about Jeepers Creepers. I
yeah.
don't. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite anime? I think Soul Eater is one of my favorite animes. Just because, it's about the bonds that you have and like kicking ass through life and also the challenges that you go through with each other. Also, it was about like it was just badassness. It was a really cool anime, or is a very awesome anime that I thoroughly enjoy. I think out of all animes that I've watched over time, that's one that I've watched multiple times. It's just a vibe. It's a real good feeling. And I love buddy stories, right? Where it's like you got these people who all bond together and band together for a greater good. And this one is literally trying to save the world. So it's like, it's a badass show and I love it. As far as friendship, being intentional, um, being very thoughtful. I think as I've
That's good. Both those are great ones.
yeah, being intentional, being thoughtful, and also being um, I think vulnerable is the word I'm looking for, but vulnerable is not emotional. And it's to the point that you said, I look for people that I feel safe with. And safety is not just about danger, but safety is like, are you a person that I feel okay sharing my good news with when I succeed and when I feel accomplished? Can I share this with you? Are you one of the first people I think about? And also, can I sit in a space with you where I'm not doing so well and I know you're going to be present? And we do that for each other, right? So safety is paramount for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Yeah, actually, I would change that to say safety. And
Mhm.
I like your top 3 than I like mine. Like I would just swap yours out for mine. But yeah, no, because that's literally yeah, you're in my head sometimes, Isaiah.
Yeah, I think those are big, and you actually have all those qualities. So, thank you for being a friend, dude. So yes, my guy, thank you for being on this podcast with me today.
Chris, it was a pleasure for
Yeah.
me to be on this, and I had such a good time talking to you. This early in the morning for me, the AM.
Dude, let the people know what your podcast is again before you leave.
Oh, yeah, I could send it to you. Yeah. It's the Habibi Hookah with Habibi podcast. And yeah, it'll be out sometime next month. And I will be sending you the details once it comes out. And
Yeah.
hopefully you guys can come and support.
You guys go and support, because if you're supporting my homies, that means you're also supporting me. And if you love what I do, then David is an extension of me and somebody I value tremendously. So I think you guys are going to enjoy him big time.
Yeah, well, thank you again. I appreciate you so much. You already know.
Yes.
And hopefully we'll do this again on
Yes.
your 6th anniversary. Because every year you have a guest. So hopefully
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right.
All
All
right,
right,
brother.
brother.
All right, brother. Enjoy the rest of your day. Make sure you get some sleep because it's 6 a.m. over there or 7. What? Actually, it's about to be 8 a.m. over there.
Yes.
So enjoy your day. And thank you guys so much for having me on here. And thank you, Isaiah. And hopefully we'll do this again soon.
Love you, brother. Guys, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and take flight. Later.